Hello
It's
and welcome to
horrible.
Around the Lens, episode 148. I am your host, David J. Murphy. Joining me as always is my co-host, Zach Roberts. Hello, Zach.
Hello.
What you been up to the last week or so? Anything fun or exciting?
Not a lot. I did photograph. I think we talked about this before, but did photograph the Lady Parts Justice Golden Probe Award ceremony, which you can go to goldenprobes.com. It's a really funny kind of play on an award ceremony where they give anti-woman and anti-choice extremists awards for being like, these are the worst misogynists of the year, and these are the people with the most sexual harassment lawsuits and things like that. And it starred Margaret Cho and Stormy Daniels, and got to meet some Orange is the New Black stars, things like that. So got to meet some very cool people. And I can say now that Stormy Daniels is freaking hilarious in person and an inordinately nice person. Yeah. Anyway.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just published one of our lens case reviews, the lens case duo review, and you can also see that on Petapixel, where it was featured. So go and check out that lens case review and let me know what you think. See if it matches what you're looking for in a lens case. I don't use lens cases, but I thought, I'll give it a shot with that one.
Well, that one's a holster too, though, right? Like it's not just a case. Like there are lens cases, and then there's ones that actually like hook onto your belt. That you
Guys,
Like,
it's a holster and a lens case.
oh wow! No, those are useful. The lens cases itself, like I'm like I don't know. Like you were saying off, before, is that like I don't know what the point of just a simple lens case is. That's just like the lens wraps and things like that. Where I'm like, well, they're okay, but I have a bag for that.
I want to see the one photographer who comes with the lens cases that comes with the lenses, like all of them, with their own individual like shoulder straps strapped over their shoulders, an additional like 2 lenses, and like I want to see them manage that
around,
hitting
people.
Nice. Yeah. I have to imagine that's what the one person who decided let's include lens cases with our lenses when we issue them. That's how they imagined it would be used.
Let's include ones that are completely and totally useless to use, because half the time they don't even have belt loops, they don't have straps on them, and they're super thin, so you wouldn't want to actually use them.
Right, but I'll tell you what they're good for are smokables. Like I keep my pipe tobacco in one. Really, they're very good for smokables. They're very good portable smokable cases, and they're cool if they got the Nikon name on it. That's pretty awesome.
There you go. They're good for taking up space in my closet. That's about what they're good for. But I would say the lens case duo is a neat little lens case, and it has a belt loop and has a whole bunch of versatility. So go check it out. Anyways, we got a great show for you tonight and an awesome guest. Returning to us from a while ago is J.M. Giordano, Joe M. Giordano. Hi. Joe, please tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a freelance working photojournalist. I'm running to Zach all the time at different rallies and marches and things like that. I teach honors photo part-time at Baltimore School for the Arts. I have juniors and seniors. I teach darkroom. So we have 9 enlargers, and we do film developing. If anybody in there is interested in that, which is great. I co-host the podcast thanks to you guys getting us up and running. 10 frames per second, which is going along swimmingly.
How is you? Could you want to talk about your audience growth or audience size, or do you want to keep that secret?
No, I haven't actually. I mean, I checked it like maybe because we're almost up to 50 episodes now.
That's awesome, man.
I checked it at like 39, and Apple said there wasn't enough information, so I just stopped checking. We did get
usually what that means is you have so many subscribers they just can't. Sure. They can't. That's a number. It's an imaginary number. Yeah. That's usually what that means.
My mom likes it.
Yeah. That's the way I think about it.
But we've had a lot of our guests have been very topical. A lot of our guests have been part of the Me Too movement in photojournalism. We had the author of what I want to discuss today. He's our guest this week. It's on 10framespersecond.net. It's on iTunes and Apple Podcasts and where you get your fine podcasts. So check it out.
The purveyors of only the finest podcasts.
Yes. Yes, you guys are like my Yoda. It's great.
Oh. All right. So, anyways, we have got a great show tonight, and so glad to have JM here because he's going to talk to us about a topic we've never discussed on this show before, which is hard to believe because we've talked about almost everything. But it's something that I think is actually pretty interesting, and it goes just hand in hand with the holiday that's just right around the corner. If you're listening to this show or watching it live, it's just a few days before Halloween. So I want to talk about ghost photography. Ooh. I wish I had better sound effects than that. Anyways, JM, I don't really know anything about this topic, so please, besides, I did go on a ghost tour many years ago, and obviously, they're fun, but to me they're complete schlock. But it's always fun where they show the photographs from those, and they're like, oh, here, look at this smudge. This apparition in this corner.
They're
of
orbs,
the photograph.
Dave. They're orbs. They're orbs. Okay.
Right.
No.
They're
orbs. Wait, we're not actually talking about like the photography of the long dead Robert Capa, like his actual ghost photography. That's not what we're talking about today.
No.
Well, I will turn it over to Joe. Please tell us about the history of ghost photography.
Okay, so we'll start with Plato. Plato's cave. No, I'm kidding. I don't want to be pedantic, but we have to start with Plato. No, so I can't take credit. I teach it now. I'm teaching it tomorrow. We're doing a whole lesson on it. I had a student last semester. I just started end of last semester. Pull up these photos on her laptop of orbs. And if anyone is not familiar what orbs are, is people in this spiritualist and paranormal communities think the very small balls of light represent different spirits and things like that. I think they represent little motes of dust, but hey, science. So no, but my student was adamant. She was like, these are ghosts. And I was like, all right, we're going to do an entire history of ghost photography next week, starting with the Victorians. And I just opened up this amazing like treasure chest of photographic lore. There's a book called The Apparitionists, and we just interviewed him, Peter Mansu, on our podcast this week. Stay awake, Dave. So back to the cave. No, but we interviewed him. He did a book called The Apparitionists, and all of these ghost photographs, the spirits you see in the background, go back to one guy named William Bumler in the 1850s and 60s. He was operating around the time of P.T. Barnum, Matthew Brady, Timothy O'Sullivan, all these heavy hitters in photography. And he had this technique, which strangely enough, no one's been able to figure it out. It's all theory, how this guy did it. So I'm challenging your listeners to look up Mumler's work. Now, there's some rules because he worked with glass, right? So it's wet plate collodion, right? So you can't use Photoshop. You have to use a technique that he used and see if you can do it. I'll send some pictures over your way if you want to put them on the website or the YouTube page or something, just so you can look at them. His famous one was Lincoln's ghost that Mary Todd Lincoln swore up and down was her husband, which a lot of you may have seen that Lincoln overlooking her shoulder with his hand on her shoulder. It's a fantastically kitschy shot. Doesn't even really look like him, but we'll get into that in a second. So he was a spiritualist, and him and his wife, who was a medium, he just claimed to take a self-portrait. And all of a sudden, there was a spirit that was over his shoulder. And he took off like Twitter. I mean, he took off. He had people around the block paying $10 a glass plate for spirit photos. And that I think that in the book, Peter says that's about close to $100 a plate.
Nice.
Back then for regular people, $10. So he was making money hand over fist. And they're they're interesting photos because, again, he would invite very prominent photographers of the day to come in and watch him photograph them. He would let them take the plate out, go into the dark room, and they would do the chemistry, and there'd be a spirit photo. And there was he went on trial for fraud in New York City after being chased out of Boston, which is kind of a funny story. I mean, it's obviously fake, right? It's a fake. They're not real. And there was one. So the break in his story came in Boston when a fellow spiritualist recognized a woman in one of the photos as his wife, who was very much alive. You guys there? Hello.
Yeah, we're here. We're here.
Yep.
Okay, that was weird.
I think Zach's sharing his screen.
Oh, okay.
I was just switching to the.
Oh, there you go. Right. That's
right.
That's the Lincoln photo. Right. That's the Lincoln photo.
Yep.
1870. So right, well after the war. Anyway, so a guy walked into the studio and recognized his wife in the I don't think that's a mumbler. Is it? Okay, it is. Yeah. Usually that's an odd one. Usually he has people in it. So, but that's interesting. If you go back one, Zach. Go back one. That looks like almost the same face as Lincoln that he used. Go back.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, right there.
That's almost the same face as Lincoln, which is really interesting. So anyway, this guy recognized the woman as being in this photograph very much alive, and another guy recognized a woman in a photograph who was still alive. So they figured out they all came from this one book of another photographer who went out of business. So the trick was, how did he do this? No one knows, and I think it's a great challenge to photographers to kind of figure out how he did it. So when we had Peter on the podcast, we had some theories about it. Do you guys have any? How do you guys think he did it?
Double exposure?
No. Well, it's a quasi double exposure, and it's interesting because there's no density to any of those people, right? It almost looks chemical. It almost looks like the glass was treated before somehow. Because if it was a double exposure, I think there'd be more density to the figures in the background. Mm. Like my co-host is a professor of photography at Stevens University, and she does wet plate and 8x10. She's fascinated by this guy. So anyway, so you fast forward a little bit. Hey, with me. So fast forward a little bit, and this starts a phenomenon of double exposures, of real like charlatans, uncreative charlatans, doing these spear photography, ghost photography. Then the fairies come along. You guys ever seen the famous fairies photos? Yeah, people. Yeah. Okay, you want to pull them up, Zach?
Yeah. Give me a second.
Let me pull them up because I can pull up full screen.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Famous fairies, like fairy.
Yeah, FARIES. Yeah, fairies. The fairy, and they made a movie called "Photographing Fairies" about it. Now you're going to laugh when you see them, right? But the interesting thing that people have to remember is that during this time period, you may have only seen in your lifetime maybe 6 photographs. Think about that for a minute, right? If you were a regular person, you may have had a family portrait done, right? You wouldn't have been able to afford to go anywhere, travel, so you really wouldn't have a brownie, right? Mm-hmm. You get it?
I found a Wikipedia page.
I sent you the link, Dave.
Okay.
In the chat.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So this led to the fairy photographs, and the fairy photographs were I just want to blank on his name, but his daughter said that she had seen fairies in the backyard and asked her father to photograph them. I mean, they're obviously cut out little dolls, right? But again, if you weren't exposed to photographs on a regular basis, this was a sensation. And this was huge. This was huge. It was just like mumblers. Mumblers are a little spookier in that they're consistently white. They're consistently translucent in the background, and they're not dramatic. Like if you look up other ghost photographers at the time, there's a lot of, there's a lot of posing. But his are very subtle. He's a very smart guy because he knew that people didn't want theatrics on these photos. They wanted a picture of a loved one. And when we talked to the author to Peter, you have to remember that when you see, a translucent white woman who vaguely might resemble a relative, of course you're going to be like, oh my God, that's my Aunt Sally. It looks just like her. It's probably not, and it doesn't look anything like her, but you're seeing what you want to see.
Yeah.
And I tell my students like this is all part of that era where death photography was really in vogue. The Victorians had death photographs they would make as keepsakes of dead children and relatives and things. Very creepy, very good Halloween, good Halloween look up for photographers out there.
Yeah.
So this carries over, and you have to remember the Civil War was going on, so people were looking for a way to talk to these loved ones they may not have seen for a year that are gone. They might not see ever again. So there's all this like stew of things going on. Then you throw P.T. Barnum into the mix, who's the greatest showman on earth, right? He's touting around mermaids of Mauritania, sewing monkeys and fish together. This is selling tickets to it. So you have this fantastic soup of things going on in the photographic community at the same time, and like a lot of the Civil War guys would also manipulate photographs by dragging a dead body around, changing the clothes depending on the uniform. There's a very famous one by Gardner I think it's called a Confederate sniper's nest, and they dragged a body up a hill and put it nicely into this, to make it look like he was a sniper. But they basically manipulated these photos. So you throw that in too. You throw that in with Photoshop manipulation, and I'm sure there's cave paintings that were manipulated.
Yeah.
Looks like Ugg, right? Ugg has two heads. Someone manipulated that. It's not really Ugg, but so yeah, you that's it. Yeah. See that body was dragged. It's amazing. So you have all this going on, and people really seeing and believing what they want to believe. That's actually not. It's a guy that worked for Timothy O'Sullivan. It wasn't actually O'Sullivan. They're wrong. It was thought for a long time. His guy's name is Gardner. Gardner right there. Yeah, he's listed in there. So it's a fantastic look into what we call spirit photography. And then when you flash forward, and then you get these weird like images in a graveyard, right? Like people sitting, and they're fake, right? They're obviously fake, but they're very well done. Some of them are very, very well done fakes. A lot of it came from England. Like, hold on, let me pull it up here for a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know.
Great
Sorry.
radio, Joe. Great radio.
I know. Sorry. This is where we cue the spooky music, right? No, so you have like the Brown Lady of Rynham Hall. Here, hold on. Yeah. So you have like the Brown Lady of Rynham Hall. She's really, really famous. I don't know. I gotta get. Let me see.
Here,
how does one do that? Wait a minute. In the chat, right?
I'm trying to find a larger. Here we go. I think I got one here.
Yeah, I just sent you a link. There you go. Sorry for the breaking thing. So, you it's not even in Spanish. Portuguese. If you go to the link that I just sent you, it's a really good picture. Yeah, I know, right? It's like I know it sounds like El Misterioso, right? Yeah. So it's
Day of the Dead.
So this is one of the famous ones, and these are chances are most of these are public. Now there's one fantastic one. The Tulip Staircase Ghost is this one. No one really knows who to attribute this to. This hold on, right? Is that right? Okay. The Tulip Staircase Ghost, and these are regular people taking photos. This is why I'm so fascinated by it, because it takes a lot to even back then to manipulate a picture, right? To manipulate a photo, it would take a pretty good amount of expertise, and then when you get really good. Now pull this one up here. Okay, so the girl on the fire, right? So you guys, if you guys are listening. Town Hall, Shropshire, England, and I'm going to tell you a story and how this guy got busted. And this is actually an example of really good manipulation when you pull it up. This is for the people that are watching. There's it was a burned out warehouse hall, and the photograph is a guy took a picture of the fire, and there's a little girl looking out at you from the flame, kind of backlit, but front lit a little bit, and she's behind a railing, and people thought it was, this little girl who had died there in 1677. This is in 1995, so this stuff's still going on, right? This is great. Stuff's still going on. So a random tourist about 10 years later found a picture postcard of this in an antique shop and recognized a little girl from that photo. It's the same girl, and here's the postcard for it. So this is the ghost riddle right here. This is the girl in the hall.
You had your screen up for a second, and now it's
gone. Did it come up? All right, sorry, I sent over the link. I don't know why I did that.
Oh, okay, you sent me. I'll open up the link and I'll put it on my side.
There you go. All right, that's cool. Be faster. So yeah, so this guy just walked into an antique store and found this postcard, which you'll see when you pull it up, and it's the girl in the picture. But if you look at the photo, I mean, he got her. He had to dodge and burn that really well. It's a very well done fake. If you look, I mean, because he has her behind a railing, which I think is the hardest part, right? I mean, he must have cut the negative out and then just really got in there really, really closely to where the railing meets a little girl and did a lot of like handwork in there. Can you see it? You got it up, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see the you can see the postcard, which is fantastic. So it still goes on. I mean, there's a woman and her husband as recently as last year were at Alcatraz, and she's got this really bizarre reflection that looks to me like a woman in a window in her iPhone, in the iPhone. And I tell my students, like, it's almost impossible. You guys know what you have to do. You have to download the photograph, right? Go into your Photoshop. To make something like this, because our phones aren't there yet for this kind of this level of manipulation. The phones aren't there yet, especially if you're just a regular old couple. Even if it's a prank, it's very good. But this was very strange. So it still goes on in every country. I have a couple of Asian examples. There's one famous one of these two girls. I think it's in Taiwan, and there's very clearly a hand, like an invisible hand. She's taking a selfie. There's this weird invisible hand on her shoulder. It's creepy. It's weird. I don't buy into orbs though. I think it's just dust and things floating around. You guys can jump at any time, by the way. I mean,
well, Zach or Joe, you're showing us in your frame, just so you know.
Oh, really?
We see us.
Why is that? It's really strange.
That's the scary part, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about phones.
Better?
Yeah, much better. You mentioned. Now it's gone. Whatever you did. Okay, there you go. Now you're good.
There you go. Cool.
Anyways, I thought that it was interesting you said about phones, technology, and stuff like that, because nowadays with augmented reality technology, and they can put anything in photos nowadays, based on your location. I mean, I'd say that's something even easier you could do. You could easily like throw a specter in a window in a house with just some GPS location, augmented reality, whatever, and be like, oh my god, look, the ghost. Who knows? There's probably somebody doing that now. Maybe there's a Halloween tie-in, where it's like there's Michael Myers in the window.
Well, yeah, I mean that's that's where you get away. It's interesting because we look at it as a joke now, but when it started, I mean, these are real people grieving, right? These are real people who have husbands, whatever, in these wars. And not surprisingly, it was a huge resurgence after World War I. Most of the famous ghost photographs come post World War I. So it's just this human thing to want to like have an affirmation that there is an afterlife, that people are and hanging around. But we like Dave said, like now it's more of a joke. Like there's a shape in the window or something along those lines, which is true. But I mean, at the time, and they really took advantage of these people. These people were essentially victims of this fraud. But it blows my mind that 100 and some years, 130, 40 years later, that they don't know how he did it.
Yeah.
Mumler. I'm talking about Mumler, because the other ones have been pretty much debunked with sandwich glasses and double exposure in the dark room and all that stuff. But Mumler remains the only one that experts and photographers of his time, and the reason he wasn't found guilty of fraud was because no one could prove the fraud. Right? I mean, and he had, he had. If you read the book, which I highly recommend, it's a quick read, maybe 270, 80 pages, if you're a history buff, you'll blow through it in a night because you won't be able to put it down. And especially if you like photography, it's a really easy read. It's very, very good historical read. But he had essentially, the forensic photographers of the day that came there and were like, we don't know how he does it. Mm-hmm. He's fake, but we can't prove that he's fake because he would invite, hey, Zach and Dave, you guys are established. Come to my studio. You can, you guys take the picture, and then you take the cat, you put it in the dark room and you develop it. And sure enough, there'd be a spirit on that friggin' glass.
Well, I would bring my own glass.
Real.
I mean, that's the thing. He's obviously setting up the glass with whatever spirit, okay, I'll bring my own glass. Then let's see where the spirit is.
Right, but I'm
not your special glass
because no, they there's one of the photographers does have his own cartridge that he puts in, which is where I started thinking about how he did it. Because if you read the court transcripts, and most of them are actually in the book. I mean, it's paraphrased, but they're in the book. They mention that the prosecuting attorney says, "Is there anything at all, gentlemen, that you saw that was unusual about your sitting with Mumler?" And both of them said that he never took his hand off the top of the camera. So I guess he must have been standing with his hand like on the camera, like this. And I'm wondering if there was some kind of switch that dropped something down that the light went through first, or at the same time, but first onto the glass with the person. It had to be something in the camera. I don't even think the problem with the glass theory, like the actual glass plate theory, is that it would have had to been exposed somehow, and they would have looked. The density would have been a lot deeper and heavier with these objects, but they're literally floating there, right?
Yeah.
So my colleague Elena pointed out that the heads look cut out and put on like some kind of generic body. So we're getting there. But we talked to a guy who collects Mumler photos. He's a photo professor at Maryland Institute College of Art here in Baltimore. He's retired. And it's all theory. He has no idea how this guy did it. So I want to hear how do you guys think he did it?
So it's been so long since I've used a glass plate that I have to try to remember the mechanics of everything. I mean, outside of using like kind of what you've already said, whether it be a preset piece of glass or possibly a filter that would drop down or something like that within it. But God, I can't remember exactly how glass plate works. I only did literally one class on using it.
Yeah.
And that was like too long ago.
It's obvious. He just created a new layer, lowered the opacity, did a little bit of dithering, and changed it from a hard shadow to light shadow. Obviously he was working with a very early version of Photoshop.
I thought it would have been more lassoing involved, but I could be wrong.
That's what they make you think, but it's actually just layer manipulation. That's all that is right there.
But you might be you're onto something, right? So layers had to come from somewhere. The idea of layers, and I think this may have been a case where there's another layer in that camera somehow that exposed that onto the glass along with the person sitting there.
But I would counter that only because these are they're lighter, which means, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would mean that less or more light is passing through. So, it's
amazing. I've got it's a good this is a good drinking night for photographers to look at these and try to figure out how he did it. It really is. Because, everyone, even the experts, they have theories. And the good thing about Peter is he lets the theoreticians in the book be the people that actually lived. He doesn't make any assumptions. He lets the characters talk about how he thought they did it.
I'm surprised this hasn't been the focus of an episode like Mythbusters, where they take one of these old cameras and they actually redo it,
Yeah, it's not a bad. That's not on anymore, though, right? That show's off the air, isn't it?
It's off the air, but the guys are still doing YouTube videos. Somebody will do this on YouTube and get a couple million views.
Well, they haven't done it for 140 years, so. But I hope hopefully with this book, there might be a kind of it's a real interest with me. I'm fascinated by it, and Elena and her husband, they work as a team. they're going to try to recreate it with her 8x10 camera.
There you go.
And see if they can figure out. But I mean, people have tried, and they can't get the exact. What Peter said was, the other photographers have tried to do this, and it looks like a double exposure. It looks like there's two people in the photograph, right? It's that weird white density that he has in those pictures that aren't, because if you look, a good example for a double exposure photographer classically is Dwayne Michaels. You guys ever seen Dwayne Michaels' work? Have you ever seen it? Yeah, Zach, pull it up. So
I'll
these
pull
are
it up.
true. Okay, pull it up. Somebody pull it up. Yeah, these are true double exposures and long exposures that he did as part of his artwork. He's very famous, mise en MoMA and all that stuff. You see what I mean? So you see the density of those objects, the people that are in there. But mumblers look so much different and ethereal than the actual sitter. You understand what I mean? They look like ghosts. They're not, obviously. It's a fake. You got to say that over and over again. Nobody believes this guy, but he just had this method. He never obviously patented it. He was just like, come on over, and sure, you think you can do it, you do it. And everybody else came up with dumb looking, ghostly double exposure seance photos. It just looked like garbage. So. Yeah. And now we're into the iPhone age. I just pulled up. Can you guys see my screen?
No. I don't.
The Daily Mail photo. Can you see that?
No.
No. I'm gonna get this Skype thing down one day.
Yeah. Not today though.
No. Not today. It doesn't make good radio. Here, so pull this up. The link that I just sent you, and I teach this in the class. This is the most recent one. Of the image in the Alcatraz window on an iPhone, which is pretty wild. So, long story short, this woman from the UK and her husband were visiting Alcatraz. They took 2 frames of this little window. One frame is empty. One frame had that weird-looking woman in it. And my students rightly said, "Oh, it's a fake." I'm like, "Well, how did she do it?" Well, she, used Photoshop. I'm like, "Well, how? How do you'd have to mail that to yourself, download it, right? You'd have. There's so many steps for these 2 tourists to make a picture that it's only going to be in the Huffington Post and Daily Mail, right? They're not getting money from it. They're not going on CNN. It's just strange to me. I just don't think regular people would go. I don't know what it is. I mean, we also have the Rorschach effect, right? Like it looks to us like a woman sitting there when you pull back, right? Yeah. I mean, does it look like that to you? Now that I said it, I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just had you look at it.
Right? Yeah, it looks like a woman. I mean, it looks like it could honestly be the woman that's in the photo below it. I mean, it's, but the reflection doesn't seem to match. I don't know. It's like all those things where that's one of the things that like I'm friends with the former managing editor of Snopes, and we've had this conversation a couple times about fact checking a photo and just being like, well, like you have to try to figure out down to, well, if at least if it's outside, you can be like, okay, well, the timestamp on the photo, or we know that the photo had to have been taken between 12 and 3 in the afternoon. It's Southern California. Here's what the lighting would have been. I mean, it's crazy the stuff that you have to do sometimes to actually properly fact check, because, whether it be Photoshop or just things like potentially like this, where, was it just a woman's reflection? Then it's a real photo. It's just a fake photo in the way that it's not what it's purporting to be, which is one of the big problems.
Well, like
also,
like the girl in the fire. Did you guys take a peek at that? Did you pull it up?
It's probably not.
Yeah.
Oh wait, what the one behind the rail?
Yeah.
We looked at that.
Girl, yeah, but did you look at the postcard? The postcard that the guy found. It's the same girl. If you guys click on that link. See. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see me? You can't see my desktop.
I'm pulling it up right now.
I don't know why. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Welcome to Around the Lens. We look at websites.
So how do you get the desktop? Yeah. I know.
Yeah. So there's the picture of the girl behind the rail, and then there's a picture of the postcard. It's the same girl.
You scroll down. It's the same girl. But look. I mean, the amount of. And this is 1994, right? This is pre-photo. So he would have had to put that girl behind that railing in the dark room. That's pretty goddamn good work, man. Like, That's impressive for that era,
In which case it would be ethical, because dark darkroom techniques are perfectly ethical.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to do a lot of double exposures in the darkroom, which actually makes it sound perverted. But that
was your prog band name, right? Double exposures in the darkroom.
No, I had a punk band called Disgruntled Poster Workers. Thank you very much. But it was very timely in the mid '80s or mid '90s. It was incredibly difficult to do anything that looked like it could potentially be real. And I spent way too much time trying to do that sort of work. And so yeah.
Well, a lot of them. Are you guys familiar with Aubrey Bodine, the famous Baltimore photographer? Zach, probably you might be. Bodine, like he worked for the Baltimore Sun, worked for the New York Times. He shot like a lot of industry, a lot of clipper ships, a lot of famous like Baltimore pictures. He had a whole drawer full of clouds in his darkroom.
Yeah.
So he would like cut out the sky around these like factories and stuff, and like, how about that cloud? Oh, that cloud's good. Okay, I'll dodge that in. And then go back with a brush and get rid of the lines. It's amazing. It's just amazing. But back to Mumler, he's this one historical figure where no one's been able to really suss out how this guy did. He sparked off really how we look at spirits and ghosts and things in photographs. He's very important in the history of photography, I think. Yeah. Even to the vortexes that are actually camera straps and like and orbs, all those things. I mean, it goes back to us wanting to see something from the other side in photographs.
Yeah.
He was the first one to do it. And if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't, we wouldn't care. It's a reflection, or it's just dust. I think, personally,
Well, we're gonna figure it out here on Around the Lens.
Okay, I doubt it, but all right.
No, not tonight though. Not tonight.
No. I challenge your viewers and listeners to, if you're into wet plate, if you do 8x10, look at his photographs and try to recreate it. Photograph your steps or record your steps all the way through the process and show us what you got. 'Cause I'd love to see. I'm not a wet plate guy. I'm not a plate guy. So it'd be black every single time. It's gonna be F64. F64, like, oh my god, it's like a pinhole. It's less than a pinhole. 64, it's crazy.
Well,
it's my Lagavulin 16. Sorry.
What's that?
Distiller's Choice. The Lagavulin 16, Distiller's Choice from Europe.
Indeed.
If you go to Europe, get it. So good.
Well, getting back to the more grounded reality of people who are garbage people. I don't even know where I was going on with that transition there. Anyways, there's this HuffPost story about essentially people who were slammed for using the Congo as a prop in their wedding photos, essentially going around. And at first I thought, like, okay, maybe they're just like, because I went to Jamaica for my wedding. We had a destination wedding. We walked around, some of the areas like the shops and streets and stuff like that, and took some nice environmental portraits. And I thought, okay, maybe it's just that people are getting, worked up. And then I saw the photos, and they like have like soldiers pointing rifles at them. They're using the rifle as like a prop with the wedding ring. They're in like extremely poverty-ridden villages. Like,
yeah, this isn't poverty porn photos where like you always have these young white people go off and be like, oh, I volunteered at a village and I met this poor child, and selfies and things like that. This is saying our vows at the top of an active Congolese volcano with a local tribe while a civil war is brewing below is surrealism at its best. That's the caption. And there's a Congolese soldier with I think a full mask on, holding a AK-47 at a kneeling bride. Which, by the way, noticed the excellent trigger discipline by the Congolese soldier. But that's about the only thing that's right about this photo.
Yeah, I'm just going to flat out say it. It looks like some weird cuckold fantasy going on there. Like, take my bride, please. Like, it's very, it's white privilege at its absolute worst. It's absolute worst. I mean, white people just go around the world. They don't see what the problem is. Why can't I pose with these poor kids? Right? They just don't.
There's no problem posing with it. It's all about posting it in the context of posting it, and that's always the thing that's insane.
It's gonna make them famous, man. That's what we live in now. You know that, Zach. Like these, but I will say on the plus side, that only has 647 likes. That's not a lot of likes for a viral photo like that. You know.
I will say, so I believe that they were taken down. That they were taken down before they went proper viral. On the original images. Yeah, I mean, like the one. There's like one that's just unbelievable, which is the wedding ring hanging on a AK-47 bullet. I don't even know what the bullets being in there, but it's hanging on a bullet that is actually embedded inside of a.
It's inside the chamber.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like they gently close the chamber on the bullet and put the ring around it.
Idea. But.
Well, I mean, it'd be the charge that would be.
But the worst part is, look what they called it. Look at
blood
the
diamonds.
Yeah, blood diamonds. What a combo! Diamonds in an AK-47. Hashtag Congo. Hashtag wedding. Hashtag AK-47.
Like it's every time I go on Twitter and I'm like, listen, white people aren't like. Yes, we are. It's right there. Yep. Sorry, guys, we're like that. We're all not. Yes, we are. Look at that. There you go.
As the Facebook group is, the audacity of the caucasity.
Yes. There was a guy. I shot this Halloween party the other night. There's a white guy walking around in cardboard blackface as chef.
Oh, cardboard.
It's like, bro, it's still blackface.
Well, when Megyn Kelly was a kid, it was perfectly fine because she was a child in 1897, and.
Oh no! I'm sure when she was a kid in the Hamptons, it was a
Oh no,
gasser.
she was in my hometown. She went to SU, and I believe she's actually from this area. Yeah, and let's say she's not that much. I don't think she's that much older than me. Yeah. And I can tell you, no, blackface was not cool when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and also there's something that's rule of thumb for just because. Something's racist now and you don't remember it being racist when you were a kid doesn't mean it wasn't racist when you were a kid. It doesn't mean it was even if it's not racist, just in bad freaking taste, doesn't mean it was that, like it was bad back then.
Things don't get better with time, or things don't get less racist with time.
Was always racist to say. It was always bad to say. It's just that general public, it wasn't. So anyway, yeah.
No one looks fondly on the Song of the South and Uncle Remus. Anyway,
when you say the guy was wearing a chef cardboard, was it like just like a cardboard cutout on a stick, and he put it in front of his face?
No, he had it on a. It was
or like a mask
from South Park. He had he had like a little harness, and it was hanging off the front of the like this. Yeah. And he kept trying to get in the pictures I was taking. I was like ignoring the guy. I'm like, get out of here, man. You and your sombrero, buddy. Right?
That's how I always feel if I like the few times I've covered like festivals or music things or whatever. There's always that white girl with the full native headdress wearing the like deerskin pelt thing. And I'm just like, no, you're not getting in any of my photos. I'm sorry. I don't want to make you internet famous. Like. Even though I kind of do, but like, that's not the point.
I don't want to get kicked off their NBC show, but would it be appropriate to, if you were a portly white gentleman with a beard and mustache, to wear a red shirt and blue pants and a chef's hat, and call yourself, you're playing the character of chef, without any sort of makeup.
The first rule of thumb is if you have to ask that question to begin with. Look, I just have to ask this. Then it's a no. It's always a no.
There you go. But when in doubt, no.
I mean, no. It's an excellent point. The point is that the history of blackface is so heinous and wrought in racism.
Absolutely.
Wearing the clothes of chef, if I dressed as T'Challa with just the Black Panther costume. People know I don't have to blacken my face for them to know who I am, right?
Yeah,
right.
And I think the same with chef. I mean, I think if you had the clothes on and you can say, "Hey, I'm Isaac Hayes," but you don't have to black up your white features.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, you can gender swap. Can you race swap? Is race swapping okay?
No.
I would just say,
I don't think so.
If you're a white person, if you have to ask the question whether it's wrong or not, then it's good that you're asking. It's really good that you're asking. I just want to say that.
I'm posing the question. I'm not.
It's good that you're posing the question and that you're asking first, because that's one of the best signs. Even I, as a serious professional social justice warrior, and self-admitted, even I'm going, wait, is this in bad taste? And I check with some people first, because generally one person, whatever. But in general, if there's especially as a white guy, if you want to go cosplay or Halloween, you gotta just a plethora of things.
I was gonna say I saw so many creative costumes. It's lazy.
7 characters in movies in the last 15 years. So it's just let it go. Like I don't just let it go.
I mean, is it your as a white guy, is it your life dream to be Luke Cage? Like, can you think of anybody else you can be in the Marvel universe? Do you really have to put that afro on and be Luke Cage? Like, really? No, you don't. You just want to do it so you can, be that guy that's going to try to get away with it, right?
Yeah.
Like the sombrero guys.
Black people do the white thing. No. Just.
I mean, there's already a great chef, Bob's Burgers. You could be Bob from Bob's Burgers.
Be Bob. Well, my friend one is a Swedish chef for the Muppets.
Swedish chef.
There's other chefs. You don't have to be that guy who draws a really good. You could
also be
black
literally every other character except for one.
I know that's
South Park. Literally every single one except for Chef.
There's Token
and Token.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah. So literally, I'm like, you can let that one go. Like, just do it.
It's this guy got into a photo with a group of people as a black Captain America, who's now canon. By the way, I'm putting it out there, so I don't want anybody to be like, well, this nope, it's canon. Yeah. He tried to get behind this guy with a really good X-Men set of people in costume, and I'm like, just move, get the fuck out of there, it just made me so mad. I kept trying to horn in on all these photographs. Anyway, well, white guys are we're the worst. We suck,
Yeah, we're pretty bad.
Yep.
All right. Well, now that we've covered that topic, I think to the fullest extent, let's finish up our show with talking about photographers featured in movies. So this story came up, and I thought was interesting because I thought we could, maybe talk about this a little bit. Although in doing some research, I couldn't really find too much to back it up. But we'll start with the main story. Essentially, Johnny Depp is set to play W. Eugene Smith. And W. Eugene Smith was a famous World War II photographer who moved to Japan. And the movie that Depp is going to play, the movie is called Minamata, which is, I hope I said that right, which is set to take place in Minamata, Japan, and apparently talks about Smith's time there. And that's, you can read the whole synopsis. But
he was recording the water poisoning in the in Minamata.
Yes. So the story focuses on that. So I thought, what do we think about Johnny Depp playing a famous photographer? And then were there other photographers in history or, other famous photographers who were featured in movies played by famous actors? And what can you guys remember of any of them? I pulled up a few examples. I'll throw it to you all first, or I can talk about my examples. But first, what do you think about Johnny Depp playing a famous photographer?
Playing a narcissistic wife beater, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's actually
pretty good. Thing for Johnny Depp. Eugene Smith was not a nice man. If you there's a fantastic biography called W. Eugene Smith: Shadows and Light. Still definitive. It came out in 1984, so right around when he died. So people were still alive that could talk about him, but he's not a nice guy, and he's very narcissistic. He's very, borderline megalomaniac. Could care less about his family. Very abusive towards his wife and anybody around him. Would bring the mistresses over to the house with the kids, regardless of what his wife would say. So yeah, I think Johnny Depp's a pretty good choice.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I mean, I'm kind of at the point where not only has he not been good in a film for quite so long, so I'm kind of that I'm not overjoyed about because I mean, like Sean Penn was okay as a photographer in playing a photojournalist in was it Walter Mitty? That film, I'm trying to remember the full title, but
Secret Life of Walter
so
Mitty.
Like those two guys that kind of always, very self-centered, supposedly lefty white dudes who are kind of in general terrible to their significant others and also ironically to photographers, which is something I think both of them have a history of doing. But I kind of wish they would kind of go away and let somebody else play it, because then the problem is that once this film
he wasn't a real photographer in Walter Mitty, right?
No, he didn't play. I don't think he was even based on anybody. Yeah, no. He has played. I'm trying to remember. There's been at least one film. Of course, then you know what? There's a long history of terrible people playing photojournalists who are vaguely based on real life people. James Woods exactly is the prime example, who blocked me on Twitter, which is one of my
I was really one of my claims. I used to love him as an actor, and then when I on Twitter
I still love him as I was just like, and I still love Salvador. It's I think one of the better one of the best photojournalist films, or films about photojournalists ever made, because it really shows the abject poverty at which most of us are in. That's literally the film starts with him trying desperately to get his camera on a hawk and borrow money.
There's two more coming out next year too. I just sent you guys a link. Tom Hardy's playing Don McCullen, and Jennifer Lawrence is playing Lindsay Addario, based on her book.
That one I'm actually very.
I'd be interested to see both those. I mean, we don't, and quite honestly, most photographers make boring subjects, right? Like, who wants to sit in 2 hours and watch people take pictures? I think the coolest. It might not be the best, and he's not well known, but I think the coolest the photographer in a movie. Have you guys seen Henry and June with about not Benny and June, but Henry and June about Henry Miller with Fred Ward and Uma Thurman? First of all, check it out. It's a beautiful film, Philip Kaufman. But there's a fantastic, maybe 20-minute scene. This really happened, where Henry Miller would go out with Versailles at night and take photos for the Paris de Nuit, for the Paris at Night book. And there's a great scene where they show the real, like, he'll taking the real Versailles photo will be there, but there's a guy playing Versailles who walks around Paris at night with Miller, and I think that's probably one of the coolest cameos. And it's an extended one. He's in the movie, but the extended one. But that's really great, for that period. That's probably one of my favorite, I think. And the rest of them are war, right? I mean, actually, that Photographing Fairies is a really good movie. Oh, yeah. About the guy who took the fairy photographs, which is a pretty fun oldie movie. There's one with Minnie Driver, like where she plays an assistant and like has an affair with the photographer in his darkroom. It's Victorian era.
Yeah, there's a handful of really good ones. Bang Bang Club is a fantastic kind of mandatory book if you're ever thinking about going into photojournalism. The movie is sadly not as good. It's watchable though. And
I mean it's while you edit type thing to watch in your.
I mean it touches a lot of the important points in the book, which at least that I'm happy about. Yeah. Just kind of the conversations about there's that great scene in that film in the film when I'm blanking on who it was that won the Pulitzer for the
Peter
scene.
Yeah, Peter, the main guy.
But there's a scene in the bar where that I think I've cited this before, where it's just like it's basically says, oh, it just was luck, and he's like, oh, it was luck that he knew to walk on the scene with the right aperture and the right film and right knew how to be there, and it's that like one of those great scenes about photojournalism and why like the difference between it just being a snapshot and being photojournalism and importance. There is also what I'm really, really looking forward to, because the trailer also looks fantastic. Private War. About Marie Colvin. And
she's like a badass in that movie.
She is an incredible. She was a badass in real life. Probably so much more badass than even in the movie.
Oh,
but it is. She was with her photojournalist, and I was trying to scrounge around and trying to find the book, because I have the book. There's a fantastic book about by a photojournalist about her final days and the last trip into Syria. which I highly recommend. And I think it's based at least somewhat on that.
Send me that. Yeah, I wouldn't mind reading that if you send me that.
But for once, there is photo, like that photojournalist is portrayed in this movie. My understanding is, so I'm also that's one that I'm really looking forward to.
That's coming out pretty soon, I think, right?
And it seems, yes, I think nationally, or New York and LA, I think early November. But obviously the rest of the country will probably have to wait a while because it is. Yeah. I think it's Oscar bait kind of thing, so probably Christmas time. And then there's finally,
yeah. No, go ahead. Dave, then did you want to chime in? Yes. He's out. Like, oh, hey guys, you just go ahead and talk.
Well, we've talked. We will eventually be talking about this on a, about photojournalists in movies, right? But there's thankfully a film that has gotten basically that about the Vulture Club. By I don't know if we've seen it. I forget if we've actually talked about this on the show or not. But there's a film about. From Susan Sarandon about the Vulture Club, who is a journalist, basically who will help out other journalists in war zones and things like that. But Susan Sarandon is basically playing the mother of. It's a fake version of the mother of the journalist. Was he four? I'm trying to remember who he was. He was killed by.
Oh, you mean yes, yeah. Dan. His name's Dan, right? They've been trying to get that movie off the ground for a long time.
And I guess his mother has actually seen the film and is horrified. They tried to get involved. No one had any interest in thing. They basically showcase, like in the film. The mother tries successfully, at least, or transfer. Sends money to the terrorists that are holding him, and so it's just basically it not only portrays the Vulture Club in a false and lying and terrible light, and thankfully they changed the title. Which I'm trying to figure out what the title is. It's no longer the Vulture Club because basically
there was hypnotizing me. I can't listen to you, Zach. Sorry, he's hypnotizing me. I can't. I missed half of what you just said.
But yeah. So I mean, it's thankfully that one is, I guess, going straight to like YouTube Red or something like that. So don't ever go see that one. Basically, if you're seeing a war film with about war journalists with Susan Sarandon, just don't.
A really cool non-official cameo, the new King Kong movie. That the female photojournalist is based on Catherine Leroy from Vietnam. Yeah. Who used the same they got her same cameras, her same light. I don't even remember, Zach. I asked a while ago what that thing was on top of her Leica she was using, but I think you were one of the ones that replied. It was a while ago on Facebook, but she's based on Catherine Leroy. She has the same exact outfit and the same exact camera, so there's no mistaking that's who it's supposed to be.
And the actress who will be playing Miss Marvel, she actually was shooting that entire time.
Yeah. Brie Larson.
Yeah. They published some of her photos are actually quite good.
Yeah, so psyched for Captain Marvel.
From the set of the movie. Yeah.
Of Marvel, Miss Marvel, or whatever, Marvel.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Cool. Yeah, I was actually, when I was doing this research, I was trying to find, photographers featured in movies, and it was
just ask us.
What's that? Yeah, I know, right? Research done. But I did find a couple instances. So Joe Galloway was featured in We Were Soldiers, and he was more of a journalist, Pepper. But definitely was a photographer, photojournalist.
Yeah.
In that photography.
Carried a gun.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And then
played by Barry Pepper in the movie.
Who I've not seen. Has he been in anything? Is he famous still?
Not since Earnhardt, right? He did a Dale Earnhardt movie for HBO or something, and I haven't seen it.
I don't know. I don't actually know what happened to Pepper's career, because I mean, there's no. I've never heard of any reason why he went away. But yeah, you're right. I think the last thing I saw him in was at least a Spike Lee film or something like that. But
he's probably just one of these working stiff actors, who does a lot of work and we never hear about it. Like he's got movies, Maze Runner. Bitter Harvest. He's been in movies.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, he was in. I forgot it. Oh, Bitter Harvest. Oh my God, Bitter Harvest, Monster Trucks. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, it was he was in Kill the Messenger, which is another film about a journalist.
Oh yeah, the journalist. Yeah, was he the main
Dr.
reporter in that?
No, Jeremy Renner was.
Jeremy Renner was. That's what I thought. That's a great movie. That has
Yeah.
one of the best. That has one of the best final lines. They have you guys seen it? Do you know the story behind?
Yeah, I've seen it. I know the story. Yeah.
Basically, he would. Long story short, he was a guy that wrote about CIA dumping crack into the Compton and the ghettos in the 80s. And there's a conspiracy theory. He supposedly killed himself. It's a really good movie, Kill the Messenger. And the very, very last line is there's blah, 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 killed himself. It was ruled a suicide. And the last line is he was shot twice in the head. It's the very last line of the movie, which is great.
Yeah, I know.
So,
he was. Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, it's also one of the top films of kind of like how Spotlight was a really great newspaper film, and how it actually is.
A good
an investigative journalist. Kill the Messenger was a really great kind of film on actually being kind of a independent investigative journalist. Yeah. Being one of those, I haven't gone through the same crap that he's.
So Dave, who else you got? Dave, who else you got? Your list.
Well, I also identified City of God. That was a movie that was based on a true story about rural slums of Rio de Janeiro in the 60s that featured photography. Features a photographer trying to poor young fisherman's son whose dreams of becoming a photographer one day. Beyond that, I couldn't really find too many other examples besides fictional movies like 1 Hour Photo. With Robin Williams. And then I found a list of celebrities who are photographers, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about, which I found interesting. Brad Pitt, Aaron Eckhart, Viggo Mortensen, Jeff Bridges. Yep, Drew Carey. One of my inspirations, by the way.
I would love to see his. Yeah, I would love to see his photos. Actually,
maybe we can get him on the show someday.
It'd be fantastic if it was gritty realism.
That's a way to get a celebrity is to go after their hobby. Really, get them we don't want to talk about The Price is Right. We want to talk about your photos, and then you get the Drew Carey show, right? Yeah. I was in a photo show here with Ray Lewis of the Ravens, who took these really bizarre. They weren't bad photos. They were these sunset photos of all the beaches he went to on spring break or on the break, for football. Yeah. And they were really nice. They're silhouette palm trees. They were all kind of the same. Looked like a 70s album cover. But we were told it was a very nice gallery here. But we were told if we talked to Ray, it could not be about football. It had to be about his art, which I thought was kind of cool. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not a football guy.
Dennis Hopper was a fantastic photojournalist. I have one of his books. He shot in a very gritty. Yeah.
Right?
What's that?
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, well, he played a photojournalist, but he's also he has I have his a big book of his behind the scenes and kind of just everyday life photos, and he was a fantastic I'd say kind of street photographer style, almost photojournalist style. Yeah.
His sorry, Dave.
Well, I was going to say Norman Reedus, also a photographer. Since we were talking about Walking Dead earlier. Yep. And this guy, James Franco, you ever heard of him? I bet we could get him on the show. Just kidding.
He's a person who does literally everything. So performance art, everything. So yeah.
So if you guys are interested, the photographer that Dennis Hopper's based on in Apocalypse Now is a guy called Tim Page, and you need to read his book. This kid, he was just this brash Englishman. He was about 21 years old, 22 years old. He got some woman pregnant in the UK and left went to just bum around Nepal, around the Burma and stuff like that, by just conning his way through all these Central Asian countries. He ended up with a camera in the middle of the Vietnam War, high off his ass. Right, he was a big hashish smoker and LSD, and he would drop acid while he was shooting and just go out to and all these people thought he was they either hated him or they loved him. Right, he was either this kid who was and he got an AP gig, he was hired by AP and UPI, right, to go out into these battles and shoot. And he was high as a kite, and he got blown up twice. He got hit by a massive, and he's still walking around. He's actually he co-authored or co-put together a book called Requiem with Horst Foss about all the photographers that were killed in Vietnam,
Yeah.
it's a little on the expensive side now. It's definitely worth your time to get it. There's a big focus on, Errol Flynn's son went missing in Vietnam. Him and Dana Stone, they were on a motorcycle and they crossed over the Cambodian border and disappeared. Saw him again. So that's a movie. Actually, they made a movie of that, and you can't find it because I looked it up, and it's not even on YouTube. But it is a movie. But they need to remake that because I think that's a great flick. That'd be a great flick.
There was a documentary we saw. I think that featured one of our panelists. I don't know if you remember, if you saw it, Zach. That I think would make a great movie just because the photographer's life was so cinematic. He was inside wars, and he was having a relationship with someone, and they got killed at one point, and it was oh man, I can't remember the name of the documentary. If it comes to me, I'll make sure to link it.
Who's the guy? Who's the photographer?
I should have come better prepared.
Is he dead or is no?
No. It was his girlfriend. I think he was in Brazil or something like that. And there was like a war going on, and one of our guests was a commentator on the documentary.
Okay.
And it's blanking on me now. But if I think of it, I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're getting near the end of our show, guys. I want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Joe. Joe, where can people learn more about you and see all your great stuff? Maybe catch your class on ghost photography, perhaps, or
this year is not streaming. Next year I will stream it. I want to. This is my big experiment to make sure I don't look like a dummy. But next Halloween I'll definitely have it down. Knock on wood.
Get that Skype down.
Yes, I know. I'm sorry. I'm usually better with technology. Really, like I am. I just don't know why I'm bad with Skype. Anyway, you can follow me on Instagram at JMGphoto. And my website is jmgiordanophotography.com. I do a lot of photojournalism, that kind of thing. I have a museum show coming up in May at the Museum of Industry. I have a 14-year steelworker project that I've been working on called Offer Thee This Day, The Fall of American Steel. It's on the website, and that's coming up in May. So,
sweet. Great. Nice. All right. Well, for Zach Roberts, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 148. Before I sign off, I should have done this at the beginning, but we're doing the contest still. If you want to win the Exposure 15 camera bag, leave a comment with a show suggestion or a guest suggestion in the comment down below. We'll announce the winner on episode 150, which we're only 2 episodes away from. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Oh, dear Lord.
Oh, man, time just sneaks up on you. You'll get there one day, Joe. You'll get there.
I know.
You can be syndicated
I
now,
know.
I
look up to you guys.
That's when we start making the big money. Syndication.
Yes.
Yes. Anyways, that's been our show for this evening. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Joe. I have been David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 148, and we are out.